Renzo, welcome to the MedTech Unbox podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's really good to have you on, and I'm really excited to change it up a little bit, right? I usually nerd out when we're talking about the design and development and manufacturing of medical devices in a regulated environment, and I'm a big capabilities person. I like to understand capabilities, whether it's extrusion and molding and catheter development, and I'm interested in kind of shifting the discussion with you and kind of the discoverability, digital marketing, some of the new modalities that how we look at discoverability and brand building in a regulated environment.
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest hot topics today at least in my world, the marketing world, in general. And so there's so many different ways that we can obviously approach the conversation, but I think the biggest thing is just really trying to echo or what I'm trying to echo in a lot of the conversations that I'm having is that what we've known for the last 5, 10, 15 years, it's quickly evolving rapidly, right? And so even me as a millennial, and I consider myself really tech savvy, if you will, and building websites, understanding SEO, and even the things that we would use as kind of our traditional methodologies are quickly changing because there's so many other parameters that we have to consider today, right? And so the biggest thing, as everyone knows, is your ChatGPTs and your Claudes and your Perplexity. So these are all kind of the tools that everyone's kind of using in the background. I think we're past the point, and when people are trying to pretend that they don't use it, I think everyone uses it to some capacity, whether in their personal or their professional life, and it's coming, and there's no way to really stop, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's really influencing how we're discovered as companies, as individuals across the globe, right? And so it's an amazing time to be alive. It's exciting. It's also scary to some degree, but at the same time, it's coming, and we just need to prepare.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about how, especially in the CDMO space, right? The CDMOs want to be discovered by the MedTech OEMs so they can get in front to discuss projects, opportunities, capabilities. And there's some traditional ways that we've done that in the past. Let's kind of back up and just kind of say, what do organizations do to be discovered by their potential customers?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just kind of look at the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Industries. It was always kind of human led, if you will, right? And so it was, if you had a relationship, if you built trust personally with an engineer, whoever, and you can prove your capabilities and they trusted that, well, usually you can get your foot through the door. Versus now in 2026 specifically, a lot of that work is being done digitally, right? And so you're seeing less and less people picking up the phone and going to your website and learning and filling out a contact us form as the first point of contact with your brand.
Yeah.
What actually happens now is a lot of people are using your ChatGPTs and Perplexities, and they're saying, who's the best CMO in this space? This is my device. Who has done this before? And basically these platforms are recommending these companies or even us as service providers. And so it's not only about being cited and recommended, but it's also how the AI engines are perceiving your brand. Just because you're being cited doesn't mean you're being cited in a positive way.
Right.
Yeah. It's always, again, people are just diving deeper and deeper. You have to be able to structure your content in a way to proactively get ahead of that conversation. So by time you are being cited, it is in a positive light, and it's something that it's actually doing more good for your brand than actually doing the inverse.
Yeah. Traditionally when we think about one of the best ways to get your brand out is through your website, right? And when you think of a website, developing a new website or enhancing a website, you look at SEO, right? And talk about how that's kind of trends that you just mentioned a little bit, but that transition from And that could also be from trade shows, right? That's another modality that people use to build the brand and relationships, discoverability. Talk a little bit about that transition too.
Absolutely. And so SEO is still SEO. So
Yeah.
in my opinion, as an agency owner, when people say SEO is dead,
Yeah.
I necessarily agree with that. I would reframe it in a way to say that SEO is the foundation, right?
Gotcha.
At the end of the day, SEO is for your traditional search mechanisms. So that's your Googles, that's your Bings of the world, right? And so that's where, again, you're going to these traditional search platforms and you're seeing the links of your homepage, your About Us page, or what have you. But where it goes deeper now is that's when you get into all the other commands, your AEO, your GEO. So AEO specifically for answer engines, think about it as you're being cited. You have a dog in the fight, right? Somebody's saying, who's the best so-and-so? You have a dog in the fight. And then when we go into GEO, this is specifically saying, okay, how's my brand being perceived? How am I making sure that and my content is being articulated and translated the way that I'd like it to, right?
Yeah.
And so there's different layers. I would look at it or think about it as like a layer slash a pyramid, if you will, and all are increasingly becoming more important. And so, but the biggest thing that I like to say is at the end of the day, if you're not doing basic SEO, you're not going to be in the ChatGPTs of the world, So if you're just starting at a minimum, at least be doing that correctly.
Yeah.
And then you can just continue to layer and architect and make sure that you're able to continue to produce content that is working in your favor long term.
Okay. How is that new model, AI based brand building, digital marketing impacting the smaller, the small to mid-size versus the more larger CDMOs, for instance?
Absolutely. It's a phenomenal question. And so I would just say, I would think of it as it's an even playing field right now, right? So like we've actually done internal market research study on a specific show where we actually went to all the exhibitors and we were looking for them specifically for their capabilities. And so we went exhibitor by exhibitor and basically said, we're looking for contract manufacturer in this space, knowing that we're looking for them. And so what we found after going through our entire list, I'm forgetting the actual stat, but it was somewhere between 10 to 12% on our first search. We actually found the company we were looking for. And then we changed the structure of the question. And then that's lower, where it's less than 10% of the time we found the company we were genuinely looking for when we knew their brand, we knew their capabilities. And so what does that say? It says that, again, there's tremendous opportunity. I'm an optimist. So it's one of those things that we're diving into this very, very deeply at ICOBE. And it's one of those things that from a discipline standpoint, from a search standpoint, the smaller players, if you do these things correctly, you can be out ranking your Fortune 500 companies very, very quickly, because this is new for everybody. It's just like the internet being discovered, right? And so, again, and obviously I might feel a little biased because we have an agency, but at the end of the day, like, we are putting this in practice ourselves and we're seeing the results compound daily. And so that's one of the things that I would say is take it seriously. Because if you don't, unfortunately, if you're not being cited in not only Google, but in Claude, and Perplexity and ChatGPT, you're invisible, right? So whether that's you as a company or whether that's you as an individual, right? And so those are things that you really have to think about, because again, in traditional search right now or before, the people that didn't really care about it were the people that had the massive networks. So if you have the massive networks, that's feeding you.
Yeah.
If you don't have that network, or that network goes away tomorrow, well, what do? We kind of saw a little bit of that during COVID.
Yeah.
Where everyone was used to being able to access the hospitals and facilities, and the world shut down, and people were like, oh crap, well, now I got to focus on my website and all this other stuff. And so that's kind of the biggest thing. Like I'm trying to scream it from the rooftops where it's like, this stuff is so important. But more importantly, again, it's one of the biggest opportunities that we have today to make sure that we give ourselves the best opportunity to basically compete a lot better in comparison to some of the bigger companies.
Right. Absolutely. And you kind of anecdotally have a good example of that. I remember, first of all, appreciate how transparent you are to share everything you've learned. And you've developed a new website maybe 6 months or a year ago. And I don't know if you can share this, but you talked about how exponentially your projects went from kind of smaller 25K, 30K kind of projects to much larger programs, right? Because of some of the things you've done related to this. Yeah.
So we've always had a very good mix of projects. I'll lead with that first.
Yeah.
But again, we strategically built our websites with AI in mind. And with that said, now again, going back to my previous comment about AEO, it's having a dog in the fight. And so now when people are in a rush or they need to move now, or they need to quickly shortlist and they don't have time to go through 20 different people or have you, when they need to move now, that's where they go. Right. And so now what the best way I would describe it is we are seeing more opportunity or bigger opportunities because we have more of a dog in the fight at point of sale, basically, than enabling us to compress our sales cycle and all those different things. Versus, again, there's so many people that are searching and selecting people, and you don't even know it because they're not inquiring with you because you're not being cited.
Yes.
That's really was the pinnacle of what enabled us to really do that correctly. And so again, just going back to the actual technical detail of that, it's SEO at the foundation of it, but having the methodologies and the experts on your team or your partners, if you will, like me, to come in and bring that expertise to make sure if you are going to build your website, let's do it in the correct way so that you're not having to do this 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. You got to get ahead of it. Yeah. Or I was at MD&M West and I was talking to a company. They're on the basement, first of all, which is fine. And they're sitting down, they're not standing up, and they're struggling to get they have some beautiful technology related to coatings and just even before AI and everything, it's like, you're in the basement, which is fine, but and you're sitting down on your phone. It's like even the basics they weren't doing right. But then their website, there's just nothing there. And I don't think there's any AI part of it. It's like a perfect example of a small company with amazing capabilities. And I'm a capabilities nerd. I love to talk about capabilities, but you can talk about capabilities all day long, but how do you make sure that you're found, discovered, and not only that, in the right category, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really where your site architecture comes into play. Going back digitally, the trade show aspect of things, different segment, and I'm happy to go through that. But in general, answering the main question there is basically how do we make sure that we're not only being cited, but going back to how we're being perceived.
Yeah.
The way that I'd like to tell people to think about it today is instead of someone picking the phone and talking to a receptionist or whoever and saying, who are you? What do you do? Tell me a little bit more about your capabilities. ChatGPT and Claude is already doing that for you.
Yeah.
As a contract manufacturer, they already know at a high level, okay, this is what this company does. But what's actually influencing the perception is how your content's structured, right? So at a high level, it's all interconnected. And so with that said, I like to say as marketers, and a lot of people have gone away with it in years previous, where it's like, let's just do content just to stay consistent. So people know that we're here, nothing's wrong, and we're just doing it. Versus now it's more, no, let's pause and ask why. Why are we doing this? Is this going to be something that we post and it's gone in 48 to 72 hours and we're never going to think about it again? Or is this something that's generally going to be helping us in the long term? Right. And so that's where, again, what we're thinking about, or how we lead a lot of the conversations on our side, is let's just think about this a little bit more thoroughly. Maybe we're not able to move as quickly right now because it's the first time that we're doing it. But when we systematize, we're just going to get better and quicker as we go.
Yeah.
And then now everything that we are publishing and producing, we know that there's a long-term sustainability role that it's playing. And so that's really, in regards to content development, how we're really thinking about things and how most people need to be thinking about things to make sure that, again, your website and everything that you're actually putting effort into is truly working for you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about if a company organization, whether it's a CDMO, has a unique platform that caters to a specific category. Let's say an organization is really good at miniaturization for neurovascular or neuromodulation. How can this model that we're talking about help an organization be discovered in kind of that niche
Sure.
area like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it all goes back down to the content, right? So we have different content types. You have your capability and you have your product pages. That's kind of your high level, getting people a flavor of what it can be. Versus when you start going into the depth of what that means, that could be your blog posts, that could be your white papers, that could be, again, your webinars, whatever out that you're producing around that topic, you're just going deeper, right? And so that's really how you're helping the engines synthesize what you're producing, and it's all connected, right? So it's like, I can sit there and say, yeah, we're a website development marketing agency. And like, if I just have a landing page on it, it's only going to do so well there, versus I'm trying to get ahead of the conversation. What are people asking about it? Okay, great. If you're the best, what makes you the best? Like, okay, if I'm talking to you one-to-one, you're basically, and again, it's transparency, right? And this is where a lot of people struggle, where it's like, I'm a transparent person, but at the same time, I understand how these things work, where, yeah, in some regard, you're showing your cards.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you don't do this long term, you're not going to be cited.
Right.
And so it's just, how are we just spoon feeding as much content around this specific topic as possible consistently, and basically creating this interconnected web in the background? So it's like website, blog, anything else, and then always the externally as well, right? So that's at least the way that I would start thinking about it.
Okay. Interesting. Those different content, blogs, white papers, these different opportunities to build the awareness in certain broad-based categories, or even if it's niche. Kind of thinking of that and how to build it so that you kind of are the authority in that space, right? How do you kind of look at that? Is all intertwined? Is it the same answer, or is there some?
It's kind of the same.
Okay.
There's different nuances.
Yeah.
But that is the end goal.
Yeah.
All trying to be the authority in our specific domain, right? I could be in the marketing space, specifically in the MedTech and healthcare realm, or a CDMO, or a contract manufacturer in the balloon space, or again, if you're in coatings or what have you.
Yeah.
Just really honing into that. And so I think gone are the days of everyone being good at everything. And so now what this is really going to force is going to force contraction in saying, okay, this is what we're really good at. And so, like, let's really invest in this area digitally, so that when people are looking for this specific capability, we actually populate, versus saying, oh, gee, let's spread this. And we're allocating or investing 5% across all these other things. And so it's really making people think about strategy that way. And that's kind of hard, because a lot built their businesses off of that model. But when it comes to creating content and going deeper, well, there's only so much you can do in such a short period of time if you're spread thin,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
double down on what you're really good at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, I wanted, I should have started by asking you to give us a background in iCobi. We'll do that. We'll change it up,
Yeah.
Lorenzo, and do that at the end, and then tell us how people can learn more about you and where they can find you. And so go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way, like I like to describe iCobi today, is we are a full service marketing agency. And again, I like to be very straightforward. Everyone and their mother claims to be a marketer these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you almost have to, right? Whether you're in sales or marketing, or if you're independent, like you have to market yourself. So like I get it, but all marketers, all agencies are not created equal. And really that's where an iCobi stands out, because MedTech is basically all we do. Yes, we have some crossover in life sciences and healthcare, et cetera, but we primarily started in the device space. So understanding supply chain and the actual commercialization side of the industry is all we've done since our the very beginning of our brand. And so with that said, we are a full service agency in regards to anything digital. So your website design and development, your SEO, your paid advertising, but then more importantly, the creative as well. So that's your blog writing, your site architecture, your content generation. And so the biggest thing that I'd like to say is, from a company standpoint, yes, we're capable again in all these areas, but what we're really focused on right now, because we see the opportunity, is really helping companies get ahead of this specific topic, because the people that don't invest in it, quite literally, you might be invisible in the next 5 years. And people might not be here, right? And so the biggest thing is, how do we just continue to educate individual marketers and companies alike, to really take this seriously, and really stop the spray and pray approach, and be like, before we continue to produce anything, how do we get more strategic and make sure that this is actually going to be helping us 2, 3, 4 years down the line? And again, everything we do can't necessarily do that, but it can contribute, as it continues to compile. So I would say, as for iCobi, we're really honing in on what website design and development right now, where again, design development is one specific capability, but the layers to it is really where we thrive. It's okay, how do we need to think about this strategically, and then how is this going to play into our long-term strategy from a content development standpoint to make it easier.
Yeah.
Then if you start with a really good foundation, well, then continuing to be able to pool and get creative and do all that fun stuff that us as creatives like to do, it does become easier, versus when you do the inverse, you just throw stuff right together,
Yeah.
and you're just trying to create content and send traffic to random landing pages. Well, it's a little bit more chaotic than it needs to be. And ultimately, it just doesn't work, especially in the world of AI, right? And so that's the kind of biggest thing that I would say is, anything website infrastructure, AI content generation, from that standpoint of things, that's where we're really playing, what we really care about. At the high level, again, when it comes to our capabilities, your high fidelity video, your animations, your motion graphics, all the different things.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go through the whole Rolodex, but a lot of different brands across the globe have come to us and trust us, that are, again, pre-revenue all the way to companies that are 5+ billion in revenue. So we've been able to see a lot of things and learn a lot quicker than most, because we have this exposure, right? And so it's been a very good time.
Yeah. I was going to say, what you just mentioned at the end, quicker. Everything you do is pretty much in MedTech. I've worked with marketing agencies that have variety of, they work all different markets and hit to speed on MedTech and the environment and the regulated environment and catheters and just the basics is a lot of work. So you kind of you're a step ahead there already.
Yeah, absolutely. We like to describe it as there's almost little to no hand holding.
Yeah.
Obviously, or with companies like, you are the experts in which, like, you built the technology. This is what you do on a daily basis, but we can quickly plug in and supercharge. And when you talk about contract manufacturing or specific capabilities or again, basically the overall vernacular when it comes to commercialization and understanding regulatory environments, you're not coming to us and teaching us that and saying, hey, watch out. We're the ones saying, okay, this is what we've done. This is where our experience has been. And so have you thought about this? So now you have a partner that's asking you the questions versus you losing sleep at night because you selected a partner that doesn't have expertise.
Very important. Very important. Excellent. This has been a great conversation, Lorenzo. Before we end, tell the people where the audience where they can find you on social, on your website, so they can learn more.
Fantastic. And so, you can find us at icovy.com. That's ICOVY.com. And same thing on LinkedIn as well, primarily. We're really focused on LinkedIn. All the other social platforms we're not terribly too focused on right now. But if there's any digital problem, especially in this realm, that we can potentially help with, we'd love to have a conversation. Based off this, you can tell that I'm really passionate about this subject because there's so much opportunity out there. And there's so much to go around for everyone, in my opinion. And so we really want to empower the people that want to take it seriously and take that leap forward.
We share that and that passion, Lorenzo.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
All right.